Okay, imagine if scientists suddenly held a press conference and announced they just discovered a brand new continent right here on Earth. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's essentially what happened in the world of human anatomy back in 2018. Researchers made this absolutely stunning announcement. They identified a massive, previously unrecognized structural system hiding literally in plain sight inside of us. It's called the interstitium, and today we're diving right into this explainer to unpack exactly what that means. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to uncover this hidden fluid highway, find out exactly why we missed it for centuries, explore the cancer pressure problem, look at some fascinating parallels where Eastern traditions meet Western science, and finally, rethink chronic gut diseases. Let's get right into it. Section 1, a hidden fluid highway, the body-wide network right under our noses. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth could modern medicine overlook a massive structural system for hundreds of years? Well, to answer that, we first need to understand what exactly this thing is. The interstitium is basically a body-wide network of interconnected, fluid-filled compartments. You can think of it like a living, dynamic shock absorber system for your body. It's supported by this incredibly strong meshwork of collagen and flexible elastin proteins, and it literally exists everywhere, just beneath our skin, lining our digestive tract, surrounding our lungs, and even wrapping around our blood vessels and muscles. Just look at the sheer scale of the interstitium. We're not just talking about a localized little pocket of fluid here. This discovery completely forces us to reconsider tissue architecture from the ground up. Instead of viewing our organs as, isolated parts wrapped in some inert, lifeless packaging material, we now understand that they're all connected by an integrated connective tissue network. It's an incredibly active, body-wide fluid transport highway. Section 2. Why did we miss it? The fixation artifact that hid the truth. Okay, so if this massive fluid highway is literally everywhere inside of us, how did generations of brilliant anatomists completely miss it until just a few years ago? Well, the answer actually comes down to the technology. For decades, traditional microscope slide preparation relied on a process called chemical fixing. And while that was great because it highlighted cellular details perfectly, it also completely drained away all the fluid. This 2018 breakthrough was really only possible thanks to modern, probe-based confocal laser endomicroscopy. That's a mouthful, I know, but it's basically a technique that allows doctors to view living, intact tissues at a microscopic level during surgery, keeping all those fluid spaces perfectly preserved. See, when you drain that fluid away to make a traditional microscope slide, the whole connective protein meshwork just completely pancakes. It's exactly like the floors of a collapsed building. And this created what scientists call a fixation artifact. So for generations, pathologists looking at these slides saw these dense, flat layers with tiny cracks in them, and they just dismissed those cracks as mere tears in the solid tissue, assuming they were caused by the slide-making process itself. But in reality, they were actually looking at the flattened ruins of this vast fluid network. Section 3. The cancer pressure problem. How the interstitium impacts tumor biology. This is where things get really crucial, because this fluid network isn't just structural. It actually drains directly into our lymphatic system, and that makes it a massive superhighway for cancer behavior. Look at the stark contrast between a normal, healthy interstitium, which is orderly and has perfectly regulated fluid flow, versus a tumor tissue interstitium. Tumors actually generate an abnormal, hyperpermeable, and completely swollen microenvironment. They literally build up massive amounts of fluid and dense collagen, which results in drastically elevated tumor interstitial pressure, or TIP for short. And this elevated pressure is a huge problem. It acts as a literal physical shield for the cancer. The pressure inside the tumor gets so insanely high that it pushes back against the natural flow and distribution of therapeutic drugs. That means chemotherapy simply can't penetrate deep into the tissue where it needs to go. On top of that, it compresses the surrounding blood vessels, reducing blood flow. This creates a low oxygen state called hypoxia, which actually makes the tumor resistant to radiation and actively promotes the shedding of cells. Essentially, it drives metastasis and helps the cancer escape our immune system altogether. So, how do we fight back? Well, researchers are actively targeting the interstitium to break down this pressure shield. They're using pharmacological agents like bevacizumab to try and normalize those leaky tumor blood vessels. They're also deploying biological enzymes, think of things like collagenase, to literally digest and chew up that excess collagen matrix. And they're even turning to physical manipulations, using everything from ultrasound to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, aiming to alter the tension of the matrix and drop that internal pressure. The whole goal is to finally open the door for life-saving drugs to enter. Section 4. East meets Western science. Parallels with traditional medicine. Now, as we map this incredible biological network in Western medicine, we stumble upon a truly fascinating historical parallel. You have to ask, did ancient medicine actually map this fluid network thousands of years ago? Now, to be clear, modern science isn't stepping in to validate esoteric concepts like qi, but we are impartially observing something amazing. The physical pathways that were mapped out in traditional practices share some absolutely striking geographical similarities with the structural pathways of the interstitium. When you bridge the gap between these two worlds, the overlap is kind of mind-blowing. When you compare the anatomically undefined meridians and channels from traditional Chinese medicine with the continuous connective tissue webs, fascial planes, and interstitial fluid pathways mapped by modern science, they line up in a really compelling way. Areas that were historically identified as having high energy flow seem to correspond directly with these fluid-rich, highly conductive interstitial highways we are just now learning about. In fact, modern research on acupuncture actually provides a physical mechanical explanation for what might be happening here. Studies have shown that when needles are inserted, they literally wind around and mechanically deform this very precise connective tissue network. That deformation alters fibroblast signaling and completely changes local tissue tension. Plus, and this is super cool, the thick collagen bundles in the interstitium are known to generate actual electrical currents when they bend with movement. So it really suggests that ancient practitioners may have empirically found these highly sensitive, biologically active connective tissue intersections way before modern anatomy had the tools to actually see them.
Section 5. Rethinking Chronic Gut Diseases. The interstitium's role in the digestive tract. Bringing this massive discovery back home to everyday chronic illness, the interstitium might actually hold the key to unexplained digestive disorders that millions of people struggle with every single day. If you look at the layer right beneath the mucosal lining of the gut, it's called the lamina propria. Historically, gastroenterologists have been hyper-focused on just the surface epithelial cells, but as it turns out, the submucosal connective tissue layer is actually a massive, biologically active interstitial environment. It's incredibly busy regulating fluid movement, housing immune cells, and controlling permeability throughout your entire digestive tract. So when we look at a chronic disease like microscopic colitis through this new interstitial lens, everything kind of clicks into place. The hallmark sign of this disease is these thickened collagen bands right under the surface, and that strongly suggests we're dealing with a disorder of the interstitial extracellular matrix and connective tissue remodeling, not just some surface-level irritation. If that interstitial pressure and fluid transport get disrupted, well, it perfectly explains the profound, unrelenting watery diarrhea that patients experience. Plus, mast cells, which are the guys that release histamine, reside heavily in this connective tissue. That creates a direct link between the disease and those mysterious histamine sensitivities and widespread inflammation we see in patients. As one researcher so eloquently put it, understanding this disease through an interstitial lens doesn't throw out our existing medical models. Instead, it upgrades them. It integrates them into a much more complete picture. By finally acknowledging this dynamic fluid environment, we can connect the previously isolated dots between fluid dysregulation, abnormal immune activation, nerve sensitivity, and structural tissue changes in chronic gut patients. It's finally giving us a unified framework. Conclusion: the future beneath the surface. As we wrap up this explainer, we're really left with a profound and incredibly exciting shift in how we view the human body. The discovery of the interstitium proves once and for all that human anatomy is definitely not a closed, finished book. Our historical blind spots were really just a product of the limitations of our past imaging methods and, frankly, our own assumptions. By looking deeper, right beneath those surface cells, we are finally mapping the communication highways that control our health. Which leaves us with this one final, thrilling thought to ponder. If we completely missed an entire body-wide fluid highway until the year 2018, what else is waiting right under our noses, just beneath the surface, to completely redefine the future of medicine? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the interstitium today. Keep asking questions and keep looking closer.